Hey guys, Laura Whitmore here, owner of Strategic Test Prep, and I'm so excited because the March SAT scores were released today. So I scored perfect on this test in the math. I got an 800. I am going to take this time in this video to walk you guys through the math section 3 from the US paper test. So if you took the US paper test and you're wondering about any questions on section 3, definitely stick around for this video. If you're an international student and you're taking the digital SAT, I checked and those questions are not available, unfortunately. So we're not going to be able to do any walkthroughs from the digital SAT, but I would highly recommend, if you haven't yet, to get that Preply app. Go sign up now. You're going to have an extra 250 math questions that you can start to prep from that I designed just like those on the digital SAT. One quick reminder, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, hit that subscribe button below because I come out with new content each week to make you the best test taker that you can be and to get the score you want. Let me just kind of show you what I did. Just as a disclaimer, you can do math problems in different ways, guys. So just because I'm doing it one way it doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can solve this problem. And it doesn't mean it's the way that I'm telling you how to solve the problem. It's just the way that I thought of doing it in the moment with the time ticking. So if you have a better way to do a certain problem that I'm walking through with you, definitely comment below and share that. Here we are in question 1. What's the solution? Well, guys, just make sure that you show your work on the paper so you don't make a mistake. But you should have easily gotten -7 there. So we're going to move on. Okay, now we're on number 2. Jacqueline spent $150 for supplies and gas to start a lawn mowing service. She charges $25 for each lawn she mows. Okay, that language to me sounds like a slope. $25 for each lawn. That's definitely a slope. In the first week, Jacqueline made $50 after the cost of supplies and gas was deducted. Okay, that's her profit, so that's going to be the total. So I want it to equal 50 on that side. Which equation represents this situation where X is the number of lawns Jacqueline mowed during the first week? Okay, I want the 25 to be next to the X, and the cost is 150. She spent 150 on supplies. We need to subtract that away, so the answer is going to be A. Okay, question 3. So we have a system. What's the solution X comma Y to the given system of equations? Okay, there's different ways that you can go about this. You could use the elimination method, but honestly, I see that both of these equations are set equal to Y. So I'm just going to drop off the Y's and set them equal to each other and solve for X. I noticed that every X value is unique. So all I need to do is get X and then I know the answer. I don't need to go and solve for Y after that. That would just be a waste of time. So I'm going to go ahead and just write this out on the paper. Combine like terms. So it looks like I have 32x equals -32. Oh, okay, so that means x is going to be a -1, so the answer is B. Okay, the given equation relates the positive numbers a, b, x, and y. Which equation correctly expresses a in terms of b, x, and y? So this is basically an isolating a variable problem where we need to get that a all by itself on one side. So I'm going to add y to the other side. And now I have ax equals bxy plus y, and then I just need to divide by x. So I'm looking for a bxy plus y divided by x, and I see that in A. All right, we have function h of t equals -4.9 t squared plus 10t. Okay, it's a quadratic. I know it's turning this way because of the -4.9. We have a negative a value. And it says it measures the height h of t in meters of a football t seconds after it's kicked. What is the interpretation of h of 2 equals 0.40? Okay, so I like to label in my equation what things mean. So at the end of the day, what's going on here is the t is in seconds, and the h of t is the height. So that means that the 2 is going to be 2 seconds, and this will be the height. And I don't know what the height is in. Is it in meters? Yep. So it'd be in 0.4 meters. So that's what we're looking for. It's a height of 0.4 meters, 2 seconds after it's kicked. The answer is C. Absolute values. They love these. So first things first, I'm going to move the 9 over to the other side. I want it to have the absolute value expression on one side, and I want it to have a constant on the other. And now I can rewrite it as 2 equations because one equation will equal a positive 9. The other one will equal a -9. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve. So if I take away 15, I get -x equals -6. That means x is 6. If I take away 15 on this side, I get -x equals, -24. So x is 24. There's my two answers. All right, this is something they've been incorporating more recently where they take a graph, one axis measures one thing and one axis measures another thing. So they said Lucia and John will work together to make 60 paper flowers for a school party. The line shown represents the possible combinations of time and hours spent by Lucia and John to fulfill the task. Okay, so how many paper flowers will Lucia make per hour? Lucia is the y-axis. So I want to isolate her and get rid of John so I can know how much she makes per hour. It looks like if John is not part of this, it would take Lucia 12 hours to make 60 paper flowers. So she can make 5 flowers per hour. That's our unit rate, and that's why the answer is B. Okay, this one is an exponential function. Now there was a translation down 1 unit. So that graph shows the graph moved down 1 unit. F of x is going to be shifted up 1 unit. So this would be the graph of f of x. It says, what could define function f? So that means f of x is at a y-intercept of 3 because we have to move it back up. So if I put in 0 for x, I'm going to get the y-intercept. Now, this one would get me a y-intercept of 1. That doesn't work. That one would get me a y-intercept of 0. That doesn't work. This one gets me a y-intercept of 3 because when I put in 0 for x and then add 2 to it, I get 3. And that's what I need for f of x. So the answer is D. All right, we have a circle. And chances are, okay, they need the perimeter of the square. So if a circle is inscribed in a square, you know, when you draw a picture of that, basically what it means is the circle is inside of the square. So if we can figure out the circle's radius, then we'll know its diameter, which is the same length as the side of the square. So then we can just multiply it by 4 to get the square's perimeter. Well, I need to get that circle in standard circle form in order to know what the radius is. So my first order of business is I'm going to add 47 to both sides. Okay, now I'm going to rewrite the equation and I'm going to leave a space for the x's and I'm going to leave a space for the y's because I need to complete the square on both of those. How do I do that? Well, I look to the middle term. I cut negative 10 in half, which is negative 5, and I square it. If I add 25 arbitrarily into an equation, I have to add it to the other side as well to keep that equation balanced. So I'm going to add 25 to that side. Then I'm going to cut negative 6 in half, and I'm going to square that. That'd be negative 3 squared, which is 9. I have to add that to the other side. At this point, because I need the radius, I'm not going to focus on the left side anymore. I'm just going to add those numbers up on the right side. Oof, that's some tricky mental math right now. So we've got 25 and 9, that's 34. 34 and 47, that's 81. Which I would expect to get a perfect square on the no calculator section because you want it to come out evenly. They're not going to make you do something with irrational decimals. So I know I'm on the right track because 81's a perfect square. That means, and that represents r squared. So that means r is 9. So if the radius is 9, the diameter is 18. So the side of a square is 18. And then we just have to do 18 times 4, which is 72. And that's how you get C. Okay, number 10, which expression is equivalent to, we have the 5th root of 32 times a cubed times b to the 4th. Okay, I'm assessing all of my answer choices, and it looks like they've rewritten it. So first of all, the 5th root of 32, we can actually simplify that because that's 2. 2 to the 5th is 32, so I'm going to pull that out. So now I really have 2 times the 5th root of a cubed, b to the 4th. And I'm just going to rewrite that in fraction form. It's really 2 times a to the 3/5 times b to the 4/5. And so that would be A. Okay, so once you consult the cheat sheet in the front of your section, you have the volume for a sphere and cone on there. You can write them down and then fill in the values that you need. Based on the picture, it looks like the radius of the cone and the sphere is going to be 3 because it's half of 6. They're saying 6 is the diameter. So also it looks like because the radius is 3, the height of the cone is going to be 6 because they said the entire thing is 9. So now we have everything we need. So let's start with the sphere. I'm going to go ahead and throw in a radius of 3. I get 27 times 4/3 pi. I'll cancel the 3 with the 27. So I really have 9 times 4 pi, which is 36 pi. Okay. But we only have half of the sphere. It's like that little ice cream top. It's like a dome. So I have to divide that by 2. So that means that ice cream part is 18 pi. Now let's do the cone. So the cone is going to be 1/3 times pi. Now our radius is still 3, but our height is 6. I'm just going to cancel the 1/3 with the 6 and make it 2. That's much easier. So I really have 9 pi times 2, which is also 18 pi. So it looks like the cone is the same volume as the ice cream on top. When you add them together, you get 36 pi. Okay, which of the following expressions is equivalent to a over 4 plus b over 3 squared? Okay, there's a couple different ways that you can go about this problem. Now, one way that I like to do things to make it easier is use nice numbers. Okay, nice numbers is basically when you assign 2 numbers to the variables and just make it tangible, but you want to make them nice. So in this case, I might make a 8 because it's divisible by 4, and I might make b 6 because it's divisible by 3. So when I go ahead and I put those values into the problem, I get 2 plus 2 squared, which is 4 squared, which is 16. So theoretically, because they're equivalent expressions, if I take the same values, a being 8 and b being 6, and put them in the answers, I should get 16. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 8 squared divided by 4 plus 6 squared divided by 3. Well, that would get me 64 over 4 plus 36 over 3. That's too big. That's going to get me more than 16. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, now I have 64 over 16 plus b squared was 6, so that'd be 36 over 9. Now 16 goes into 64 4 times, so I would have 4 plus 4. That only gets me 8. That's not enough. I need 16, so I'm going to cross off b. Let's try c. So I would have 64 over 4 plus a times b, that'd be 48 over 12, plus 6 squared over 3, which is 36 over 3. Okay, 64 over 4 is 16, plus 48 divided by 12 is 4, plus 36 over 3 is 9. That looks like it's going to be too big. I need 16 as my answer. So let's try another one. We'll do 64 divided by 16, plus 48 divided by 6, plus 36 divided by 9. That'll get me 4 plus 8 plus 4. And there we go, we get 16. Typically with nice numbers problems, they do like to bury the answer at D. So I wanted to work through all these so you could see how none of the other ones were a match besides D. But on your test, if you want to use this strategy, I would definitely recommend starting with D and working your way up. All you need to do to use nice numbers is have variables in the question, variables in the answer choices, and they have to be expressions. If there's equal signs, you can't do it because that means the variables are locked into certain values. So just make sure there's no equal signs and you can pick whatever numbers you want for A and B. It definitely makes it more tangible. Now, guys, I have a college degree in math. I definitely could have expanded this out and done it algebraically too. I just wanted to show you a way that I think most students can grasp it and understand it. So this is the way I would teach most of my students how to do it. Okay, so we have one of the 2 linear equations in a system is given. The system has exactly one solution. Which equation could be the second equation in the system? Okay, for the system to have one solution, what that means to me is that there's not no solution. So the variables aren't going to all cancel out with each other. And there's not infinitely many solutions where the 2 equations are exactly the same ones in proportion to the other. I would probably reduce that equation down and divide everything by 2 so I could see it in its simplest form. And we really have x minus y equals 1. So I won't pick D because negative x plus y, those variables will cancel out. The x's will cancel when you add them together and the y's will cancel when you add them together. That's a no solution system with that equation. It looks like the negative 8x and the 8y, what will happen there is if we go to use the elimination method and I multiply, those are going to cancel out as well. Because if I multiply my original equation by 8, the 8x will cancel with the negative 8x. The negative 8y will cancel with the positive 8y. That's also a no solution. Now, same with b. If I go to try to eliminate with b, I would need to multiply my equation by a negative 3. So I would have a negative 3x plus 3y, those would cancel with the ones in B. That's also a no solution. So those three scenarios would get me no solution. I have to pick C and just trust that I'll get one solution, which basically means when you go to solve the system, you get a value for X and a value for Y. You basically get a set of coordinates. All right, which of the following could be the graph of the equation y equals negative 4x plus 16 over x plus 2? I remember when I got to this question, it gave me pause because they don't typically ask questions like this. This was kind of unique to the March test. But I started with looking at the denominator because I know that there's an asymptote at x equals -2. Why? Because if x is -2, -2 plus 2 gets us 0, and we do not want 0 in the denominator because then it's undefined. So I'm looking for scenarios where those lines kind of go all the way up and, come all the way down and don't touch -2. Now, B is an asymptote at +2, it looks like, so I would get rid of that. So now we're down to the other three. We've got A, C, and D. I looked at the four pictures and I picked a point and tried to plug it into the graph, a point that seemed pretty clear cut on one of the pictures. So for example, D has a pretty nice point. It looks like at 10, like a y-intercept. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make x 0 and see if I get 10. So when I plugged that in, I got 10 equals 16 over 2. Does 10 equal 8? Now I'm like kind of estimating right now. And so it looks like it's close to 10, but not quite. But really, what's happening is the y-intercept would be at 8. And when I look at the other graphs, none of the other graphs have a y-intercept close to 8. D is the closest one. So I would go with D there. Okay, 15. So if the given function f is graphed in the xy plane where y equals f of x, what is the y-intercept of the graph? So again, here's another situation where y-intercept comes into play. It basically just means you make x 0 because anywhere on the y-axis, the x value will be 0. So when I do that and I simplify, I get a y-intercept of 4 and the answer is B. I don't know why they said that was hard. To me, that was pretty easy. All right, moving on to the fill-ins. The function m is defined by m of x equals 30x plus 120. What is the slope of the graph of y equals m of x and the xy plane? Okay, so slope, I mean, this is pretty basic, you guys. It's just going to be the coefficient in front of the x, so the answer to that one was 30. Now, just curious, of all the problems that I've gone over so far, what did you guys think was the hardest one in the set? Comment below. I want to know, where your struggles were. I'm just curious, which problem didn't you like? All right, number 17. So we have the function f is defined by f of x equals 1/5 x plus 9/10. For what value of x does f of x equal 1? Okay, well, we'll just set f of x equal to 1, and we're going to solve it. Now, you can actually take a step back and look at this objectively without doing too much algebra. If I have 9/10 already, I need this to be 1/10 because 1/10 and 9/10 will add to 1. So what do I need x to be to get 1/10? I need it to be 1/2 because 1/5 plus, or 1/5 times 1/2 is 1/10. All right, 18. Line K in the xy plane has a slope -2p over 5 and a y-intercept 0, p, where p is a positive constant. What is the x-coordinate of the x-intercept of line K? Okay, so I'm going to fill in what we know so far. So here's our equation of the line. We've got -2p over 5x, because that's our slope. And they said the y-intercept's at p, so we have plus p. They want to know what's the x-coordinate of the x-intercept. Now, if we're on the x-axis, so basically, just to give you guys a visual, maybe our line's going like this, I don't know. They're asking for that point. So on the x-intercept, your y value is always 0. So I'm going to set y equal to 0 and then solve for x. So I've got to take p away. Then I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal on both sides to get x by itself, the reciprocal of the slope. P will cancel with P, the negatives will cancel out, and it looks like x is 5/2. Okay, so we have a triangle. Now I see a side of 3 and a side of 4, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill in what I know. I know the hypotenuse is 5. A 3, 4, 5 right triangle is standard on the SAT. So point G not shown lies on DE. Well, you know what? I'm just going to draw it in. Even if I don't know where it's at, I'll just make it up. So we'll just put point G right there. Okay, DFG is X. So angle DFG, that's X degrees. And then they said GFE is Y. Well, I already know from doing the SAT a million times that they're testing us on the complementary angles rule. Because if we split a 90-degree angle, that means part of it, which is X degrees, plus the other part, which is Y degrees, will add to 90. They're complementary. If they add to 90 and they're complementary, the cosine of one of them will equal the sine of the other, and vice versa. So the sine of X could equal the cosine of Y. So if they're doing cosine of X minus sine of Y, since they equal each other, the value is going to be 0 because, you're taking the same exact amount away from the same amount. So you get nothing left. All right. Be ready for that. That's a big trig concept that will probably come up on the May again. They love the complementary angles rule. Last but not least, we're down to number 20. So I've got a quadratic, 3x squared minus 2x minus 7. It equals 0. And I know it's a quadratic because my highest exponent is squared, okay? So it's going to make a parabola when it's graphed. What is the sum of the solutions of the given equation? Well, guys, if you watched my predictions video, I talked about this in the video. I knew that this was going to come up and I was right. You just do negative b over a and you'll get it. So b is -2. So I'm going to take -2, divide that by 3. I get 2/3 and that was the answer. All right, I hope that helped you with the Section 3 walkthrough. Please take what you learned from this and use it to your advantage for the next test. I will be doing a video soon walking through Section 4 as well. So, keep an eye out for that one, and I'll see you guys again soon. Happy prepping.